The MP5 is a firearm that has become synonymous with special operations, counterterrorism, and honestly just being a vibe. Whether you've seen it in movies, video games, or any sort of real world military operations, the MP5 has built a reputation that very few, if any, other firearms can match. To understand the MP5, we actually have to go back before the MP5 actually existed. Following World War II, German firearms engineers continued to develop concepts that had been explored late into the war. One of those concepts was roller delayed blowback. When Heckler & Koch, or H&K, was founded in 1949, they eventually began refining that system into what would become the G3 battle rifle. The G3 would go on to become one of the most successful military rifles in the world, serving dozens of countries. After the success of the G3, H&K started experimenting with scaling that same roller delayed operating system down for smaller cartridges. The result was a family of firearms that included a 9mm submachine gun that would eventually become known as the MP5. The MP5 officially entered service in 1966. Now, that might not sound particularly groundbreaking today, but at the time it was a major step forward. Many submachine guns of the era fired from an open bolt. Open bolt guns are generally reliable, but they're not known very well for their precision. The MP5, of course, fired from a closed bolt, which allowed it to be significantly more accurate than many other competing designs. Also, combined with the roller delayed system, shooters got a gun that was very smooth, controllable, and capable of making surprisingly precise shots for a submachine gun, and then, of course, being incredibly controllable under recoil from full auto. And this combination of accuracy and controllability immediately set the MP5 apart from its competitors. So while the MP5 was gaining traction in military and law enforcement circles, there was one specific event that truly made it an absolutely legendary gun. This event was the Iranian embassy siege in London in 1980. So what happened was a group of armed terrorists seized the Iranian embassy and held hostages for several days. When negotiations failed, the British SAS launched a rescue operation known as Operation Nimrod. And during this operation, it was incredibly famous, mainly because television cameras captured the assault live as SAS operators fast rope breached windows and stormed the building carrying MP5s. For millions of viewers around the world, this was the first time they had seen a modern counterterrorism unit in action, and front and center of that was, of course, the H&K MP5. And almost overnight, the gun became associated with elite military units and hostage rescue teams, and of course, counterterrorism units all over the world. Following that event, the MP5 adoption exploded around the world. Military units wanted them, police departments wanted them, special operations units wanted them. The MP5 became standard equipment for countless organizations around the world. The FBI adopted it, the Secret Service adopted it, Navy SEALs used it extensively, and SWAT teams across the United States relied on it for decades. At one point, if you saw a tactical team in a photograph, there was a good chance somebody was holding an MP5. So what made the MP5 so special? This was going to be how it shot. That roller delayed system slows the rearward movement of the bolt, creating a very smooth recoil impulse. And compared to traditional blowback firearms, MP5 feels much less violent and much easier to control compared to other PCCs at the time. Many users of the system found that they could place rapid and accurate shots with incredible ease. And of course, the ergonomics of the MP5 were very simple. The reliability was excellent, and the gun was compact enough to maneuver through buildings, vehicles, and other confined spaces. Ergonomics were simple, reliability was excellent with the gun, and the MP5 was compact enough to maneuver through buildings, vehicles, and other confined spaces. Of course, as the platform evolved, H&K released several different versions. The standard MP5 remained the most common, but eventually you got variants like the MP5A2 with a fixed stock and the MP5A3, which came with a collapsible stock. Then, of course, there is the venerable MP5SD. And if you've ever seen one of these, you know exactly why it's famous. The MP5SD features a integral suppressor and a ported barrel design that reduces bullet velocity. This result is one of the quietest and most recognizable suppressed firearms ever created. And of course, you would know the MP5 SD if you've ever played Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Then, of course, there was the MP5K. The K stands for Kurz, which means short in German. This compact version was designed for close protection details, vehicle crews, and anyone that just needs the maximum amount of firepower in the smallest package possible. Like many other guns out there, the MP5 eventually faced competition. So by the late 1990s and early 2000s, SBRs chambered in 5.56 were becoming way more common. And this was mainly due to body armor becoming more prevalent. And different organizations wanted improved range and then terminal ballistic performance. As a result, many different units transitioned away from the MP5 towards more shorter M4s or even guns like the MP7, also made by H&K. But unlike many other firearms that fade into history, the MP5 never disappeared. In fact, civilian interest has probably never been higher than it is today. Whether it's clones, pistols, SBRs, or the real thing, people still want MP5s. The reason for that is just because the MP5 still delivers an experience that's incredibly hard to replicate today. Of course, there are newer guns. There's obviously cheaper guns out there. There are guns that are objectively more practical, but there is just something about the MP5 when it comes to the look, the sound, the history, and of course, the HK slap. So guys, that pretty much does it with the history for the MP5. I'm going to talk to you guys about my experience with it. So before I get into my thoughts on the MP5, I do want to add a little disclaimer. This isn't a long-term ownership review. I don't actually own the MP5 that I shot. One of my friends was kind enough to let me borrow it. Joe, shout out to you, bro. I really appreciate it. Love you, dog. Over the course of my time with the MP5, I've put roughly 500 rounds to the gun. 500 rounds isn't enough to tell you how it'll perform after 10,000 rounds of hard use, but it is enough to get a pretty good and pretty solid feel for how it shoots, how reliable it is, and what the manual of arms is like. So with that in mind, here are my impressions of it. So the biggest strength of the MP5 is going to be how it shoots. There's a reason this platform has maintained such a legendary reputation for nearly 60 years. The MP5 is incredibly easy to shoot well. Out to 50 yards, putting rounds on target was basically effortless. The recoil impulse is incredibly smooth thanks to that roller delayed blowback system, and the gun just wants to stay on target. Follow-up shots are super fast, transitions feel natural, and it honestly feels softer than a lot of other modern pistol caliber carbine. On the MP5, I did use the Trijicon RMR HD, and to me, I feel like this setup is best when used in conjunction with a red dot, just because I'm not a big fan of the iron sights, even though they do look cool. It is 2026, so I just prefer using some sort of red dot. And the RMR HD, of course, held up very well to this. If someone handed me this gun and said, go make some shots with this, I'd have zero concerns about being able to do it. It's one of the easiest firearms I've ever shot. It's super easy to shoot, guys. Shootability on this thing is A1. Moving on to reliability, guys, there's honestly not a whole lot to say, and that's a good thing. So I put 500 rounds as part of this review, but I have seen this MP5 get shot a whole heck of a lot more than the 500 rounds I put through it. And of course, it had absolutely zero issues. I haven't seen this thing have an issue. My friend who I loaned this from, he hasn't had any issues on it. It's just very boring in terms of its reliability. I haven't seen or had any failures to feed, any failures to eject, no weird issues. It just ran. And that's really what you want from any gun you're going to be buying, especially one that's built its reputation on serving military and law enforcement units around the world for decades now. Of course, the 500 rounds that I put through this isn't any sort of torture test, but it was enough to give me confidence in the platform that every single time I load a magazine and pull the trigger, the gun will do exactly what it's supposed to do. And of course, the MP5 has a reputation, absolutely lived up to it. Also, guys, I do want to keep in mind, I don't have experience using this with any other magazines than the H&K ones. Your mileage may vary depending on the different magazines you're using. So, talking about the manual of arms, and this is one area where I think the MP5 is definitely starting to show its age. Don't get me wrong, it's absolutely usable. It's something you can train past, right? People have been running these professionally for decades now, and I'm sure people still are. But if you're coming from an AR-15 or any other sort of modern PCC, it's definitely a little bit of a learning curve. I know I had one. The first thing that you'll notice is locking the bolt back to the rear. It's not nearly as intuitive as what most shooters are used to today, but it is something that is very easy to work past after just a little bit of time training on the MP5. And then, of course, there's the magazine release. Now, just depending on your specific configuration that you're running, reaching it can feel a little awkward compared to modern designs, mainly just because I can't reach the regular mag release on the MP5. We do have the HK paddle magazine release that's extended, and that's what makes this gun incredibly usable for me. If you are gonna get an MP5, I would highly recommend you get some sort of extended magazine release. So keep that in mind. Reloads are gonna be a little different, manipulations are gonna be different, and pretty much everything requires a slightly different technique than what most modern shooters are accustomed to. That said, I don't think any of these are deal breakers for this, of course. After spending some time with this gun, I found myself getting faster and more comfortable with it. And like any platform, reputation builds familiarity. You know, my coach, he always says drillers make killers. If you are getting this, I highly recommend you train as much as you can on it, whether you're doing some sort of dry fire at home, changing magazines in the crib. Just get familiar with it and learn how it works so you can use it better. So while I wouldn't call the MP5's controls modern, I would say there's something you can absolutely overcome with practice. Once you put in the reps, everything will start to feel natural to you. So guys, after spending time with the MP5, do I understand the hype? Absolutely. This gun is incredibly accurate, it's incredibly smooth shooting, and completely reliable based on my experience. The manual of arms, of course, is a little dated compared to modern platforms out there, such as things like the Springfield Kuna, the B&Ts. That's honestly my biggest criticism, and that's something you can move past with training. More importantly, the MP5 has something that a lot of modern guns just don't. This gun is so renowned around the world because of its place in media, video games, movies, all of that. Like, there's not a single modern first-person shooter that does not have an MP5 in it. There's a reason people are still buying MP5s and MP5 clones nearly 60 years after the platform was introduced. And after putting 500 rounds through one, I can confidently say that the legend is real. Guys, thank you so much for being here. If you like this video or you just like the MP5, I would really appreciate you liking and subscribing to the channel. And if you are running an MP5, let me know what you think of it. Let me know how you got it set up. I'd really appreciate it. It'd be really cool to hear your guys' stories. And then, of course, if you have any sort of input for me when it comes to running the MP5 or some cool stuff you can put on it, let me know. I really appreciate it. I just want to say thank you to Joe because he let me borrow the MP5 in turn allowing me to create this video. So thank you so much, bro. I really appreciate it. I love you, dog. I want to say thank you to my girl, Abby, for recording a lot of this footage. So I really appreciate her and just all the people that have helped me out to grow this channel into what it is today. And I want to say thank you to you guys for sticking around this late in the video if you're here. And yeah, thank you so much, guys. I'll see you in the next one. I love y'all. God bless you. God bless your families. And stay safe. Bye-bye.
Stay tuned for next week's episode.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
How do you say stay tuned in German?
Yet.
That's Russian.